Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining me today. So I've been asked by a few people to deliver this video, so I hope you guys enjoy it. Now, in this video, we're going to be looking at the top 4 qualities to make a successful Amazon FBA seller. So what personality traits, what kind of behavior seems to result in people building successful Amazon businesses? Now, I'm basing this off sort of the last 2 years where I've had a lot of experience networking with lots of different, Amazon sellers, whether it be sort of 5-figure, 6-figure, and even 7-figure sellers. So I've got an idea of what to look for and what to really work on as a person that's going to maximize your chances of success when you start selling. So without further ado, we'll jump straight into this, and we're going to start off with point number 1. Having a product-centric approach to your Amazon FBA venture, the business venture that you're going on, is vital. Now, what I mean by product-centric is you focus a lot of time and attention and put a lot of effort into the research and development stage, into the product research stage itself, because ultimately the product that you're going to be launching on Amazon is going to be the foundations of everything that you do after that point. So, all of the listing and listing work you do, your launch, all the work you do on your, gaining reviews, it's all going to be fundamentally underpinned by the quality of the product. So really look to not rush this stage. The beginning stages, focus your time and efforts to really add value to the product that you are launching. You want to be looking for solutions to potential problems, answering customer needs or potential customer needs that are out there. You really need to take your time with this stage. When someone purchases your item, you don't want a mediocre experience. You want that customer to exceed all of their expectations of the product that you sold them. So when they get it, everything needs to be 10 out of 10. The presentation, the packaging, the durability of the product, its presence, how it looks, the quality, the feel, everything needs to be superior. Because if you can really ensure that all those points are covered, you're going to basically minimize the chances of being criticized by a customer because of something being wrong. Ultimately, it's people who are buying these products, and they're going to, they're really going to want to see something, fundamentally good when they buy your product. So if it's a cheap, crappy product from China that you didn't sample, then you're going to open yourself up to negative reviews, and obviously that affects your sales. Feedback that you get from your customers is going to play a vital role in the success of your private label listing. Everyone knows that. So once you get to the point where you've launched, if you've not done the back end work, it's almost too late. You've opened yourself up to criticism at that stage. So really focus on this at the beginning stages of your venture, and understand that by ticking all of those boxes at the beginning, it means that you're gonna benefit from this later on when customers ultimately leave better reviews than they would if you'd launched half-heartedly. So yeah, I can't emphasize enough, guys. It's exciting. When you're launching your first product, you want to move quickly, right? You want to sample it, you want to place your first order and get it launched as quick as possible. This is the mentality from my experience with lots of students and networking with people. People want to get to the result quickly, and that's fine, right? Everyone wants to, have the results now, but ultimately, the extra 6 weeks that you put into the product research and development stage, having that customer-centric approach or product-centric approach is good. They kind of come hand in hand and tie in together. It's going to be extremely important. Now, the second quality that I look for in students, and I try to develop within the academy, and something that we have associated with people who excel when selling on Amazon, is having good people skills or being good with people. Now, there's only so much information you can gather from looking at numbers. Now, these key metrics such as revenue, reviews, monthly sales, all of these figures play an integral part to launching and to actually validating a product idea. But what I've noticed personally is it's a rather disjointed process from when you look at the figures to when you've actually launched, if you can't transition between those two and you can't, and you focus too heavily on the numbers, then you lose sight of what you're actually doing, which is selling a product to a real person, right? So bear that in mind. People purchase with their emotions, right? When someone's browsing on Amazon, they don't care how many sales, all these numbers, they purchase based on emotion. So your job is to evoke those emotions from that person. They will rationalize the sale later. They will purchase because of the emotion that they get when they're on your listing, and they will rationalize the purchase or justify it later on. So your job is to really work on that fact. If you're focused too heavily on numbers and you don't actually consider what people really want from your listing and what they're looking for, then you're missing a trick basically, and you really need to try not to focus too heavily on one and not the other. If anything, I would say the latter is more important. When someone does come to your listing, conversions are going to be lower. PPC campaigns, ACOS are going to be higher, and it's going to be more difficult for you to make the sale. Now let me give you an example of that. What do I actually mean when I say don't focus too much on numbers and even on features, on black and white aspects of a listing, because that's not going to excite people enough. You want to focus more on benefits. So imagine this in context, right? So I purchased this item from Amazon about a year ago now, and this is just a power bank, right? So when I was looking at this product, I remember seeing one of the features pages which looked at the MAH, I believe, so it's the capacity of the battery. How long did it last? Now that is something that's relevant, and you're going to have that in your listing, probably in the images. But it was focused on far too much. And what really the seller should have been trying to do is, instead of just telling you how much battery life it was, putting it into context. Have you ever been out and really needed your phone when you're at the beach and you want to take a video of something you've just seen and you've got no battery? Well, what if this battery pack has 10 hours of battery life? Now that's going to start to, again, evoke emotions from the customer, get their minds racing, thinking about, well, actually, I've been in that position and I really did want to get that video, therefore I need this. You want them to need your product, and just by saying it's got 10 hours battery life in sort of black and white is not going to do that. So again, focus on the reality. What is the actual benefit and what effect is that going to have on the customers? You've got to really go into the customer's head. What do they want to hear? You need to spoon feeding them information. What do you want them to be thinking when they're on your listing? And again, this all comes back to how are you with people? What are your people skills like? You really need to understand people to understand what they want. And if you are just good with numbers, that isn't going to cut it. So like I said, that disjointed element that I find with students between those two parts of the journey, you need to make sure that that's a smooth transition and that you understand the importance of both. And again, I work very closely with students of the Academy to make sure that does happen. So your job is to evoke positive emotion and negate or reduce any negative thoughts, so like objection busters. Well, people might think, well, I haven't got I don't know, I can't charge that, or it's too big to go in my pocket. Make sure that you address these concerns, the potential concerns that customers have in your listing, and again, go into context. Well, what if we had a power bank that's so slim and small, but it's also very long lasting that it can just slide into your back pocket, and it almost feels like having your wallet in there. It's going to appeal to people. We know, and I harp on about differentiating, adding value to a product. It's extremely important, and everyone knows that. We need to improve on what's there, create a USP to really see sales inflate. The next point, which links up very closely with the one before, is you need to be good with numbers. Now, I'm not saying you need to be a mathematician, you need to be some expert. You do need to be good with the numbers. Ultimately, like I said, it does play an important part when you're validating a product idea. So you're going, whether you like it or not, you're going to have to think of numbers. So being comfortable with numbers is key. Accounting metrics such as profit margins, profit figures, and return on investments are terms that you'll need to become familiar with and understand, simple terms, but when you factor in all the different elements of, your potential product idea, there's a lot to factor in, and it's easy to make a mistake. So something that you need to familiarize yourself with. So profit in simple terms is literally just your revenue minus your expenses and what's left over. What profit figure is left over at the end of that calculation? Now, those two calculations encompass a lot more than just those two words. There's a lot more obviously that goes into it, but those are the terms for that particular element. Now, we're all interested in profit. That's why we're doing this. We're selling products for a higher ticket price than we buy them, factoring in all our costs to have a high profit margin. Now, as I mentioned, the students, if I were to look at profit margin rather than ROI, I've started to shift over to ROI recently, but if I looked at profit margin, we're looking at about 30% plus is typically what I like to look for in a product. And some people will say that they like 25, 20%, others will say a minimum of 35 or 40. It is down to the individual, but I've been shifting more recently over towards return on investment. Now, that's a term that you also need to become familiar with. So ROI just stands for return on investment. So, I always look to shoot for 100% ROI. So if you look at my previous video, I achieved I think 137% ROI and then 88% ROI on the second product, or the other way around. So 100% you should always try to attain. So what I mean by that is, if I were to invest £5,000 into the venture, I'd be looking to get £5,000 in profit back. So I've got a return on my initial investment of 5,000 of another 5,000, which is 100%. If you do neglect the numbers, you can have a surprise when you launch. So, if let's say that, for example, you don't really upskill yourself and become familiar with these terms and how to calculate these key metrics, then when you launch, you might suddenly see your payment and think, wow, the FBA fee or the fulfillment fee is different to what I thought it was. Or, the amount of profit that I've got as a return on this investment is less than I initially calculated. What did I do wrong? So it's a fundamental part of being a good Amazon seller is being relatively good with numbers. And if you're not, try and upskill yourself. Looking at the different terms and different methods that you need to understand. Try and become familiar with them. And again, excuse my sweat. It is boiling in here. It's like a hot house, but I'm doing my best, guys. So now the last point, and this is an important one. It is patience, right? This is a quality that you need to have as an Amazon seller, right? Especially if you're a new Amazon seller. Now, it ties in with what I said about not rushing the product research stage, but also you need to be patient with regards to your expectations. This isn't, the cliche, the get rich, I hate using that term. It's not a get rich quick scheme. It's not a click your fingers and overnight, you're a millionaire. It takes hard graft, it takes hard work, and it takes time. Your first batch of products may not be that profitable, but that's not necessarily the immediate goal, is instant profit. We're looking at this as a business model, as a venture, as a long-term investment. So, profits will come if you execute the plan properly. So part of that ties in with being patient. If you're not patient and you try and rush results, or your expectations are not what your expectations aren't met, you can give up too early and you won't succeed. I have so many students who message me, namely people who've got into the 10K club, and they say, Dill, I nearly gave up at the beginning. It was hard work. I wasn't sure if it was going to work. I was a bit skeptical or dubious of placing my second order, but when they did, their ranking, very quickly spiked back up to where it was, and their margins opened up. So be patient with the process. And you need to understand that at the beginning stages, costs will be a little bit higher. Your PPC bills are going to be higher at the start, but PPC is a tool that we use indefinitely if you can maintain a low ACoS, but ultimately it will be higher at the start because you're trying to gather data. You're trying to gather information and work out what works best for your products. Now, we can do a lot of work beforehand with Helium 10 and different pieces of software, but ultimately there is going to be trial and error with a product. For example, trial and error, you may have a range for your price, and you may launch at a higher end of the range, or you may be at the higher end of your range in month 3, and sales are quite slow. Well, you might then opt to go for mid-range, so the mid-range sale price, so maybe deduct 5% from your high-end range, and then test that. Now, it may sell much better just by reducing the price by a few pounds, but you're not going to know that until you've tried and tested it, and you've seen how it works and how you can make the improvement to obviously get better and increase your sales. So Patience is key. Don't rush the process. So like I said, guys, these qualities, if you can satisfy these qualities, and obviously there's a lot more I could talk about, but these were the main 4 that I could think of. You know, I hope that you can take on board some of the things that I've said and try and implement them yourself. Again, any comments are welcome below. Really appreciate any comments that you guys got, good or bad. And I'll look to post another video or 2 this week, hopefully like 2 videos if I can. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one.